Late Night Movies with Rob and Zack. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities, where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally, these projects gel. Most times they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Zack.
And I'm Rob. And here on Cinemodities, we want to bring you something in this series, this miscellaneous series, as I think we're calling it, that's a little bit of a palate cleanser. So we started off our miscellaneous series last week with America's Got Talent. We followed that up pretty quickly in the same week with Jurassic World and kind of just dinosaurs as a whole. And we mentioned in that episode we were going to move on to the new dinosaur movie, Jurassic World 2, Dinosaur Boogaloo. But of course that hasn't come out yet. And we need, both of us, Zack and I think since Zack hasn't given me any of his opinions on this week's movie, I can only speak for myself. We needed a palate cleanser. We needed something away from the dinosaurs, from the cloning, from the stupidity of people trying to deal with carnivorous creatures that shouldn't exist and are CGI'd. We had to get away from all of that and just get back to some good, homegrown FBI versus the Mexican cartel violence, right? That's our palate cleanser this week. We just needed that good cartel violence to wash away the dinosaurs. What do you think, Zack? That's how I viewed this week's movie. How about you?
It's funny you mention it like that, because as I was thinking about this movie over the last few days, I was like, wow, this is the first movie that we've actually done that isn't either outright horrible or a morbid curiosity. And then Rob summarized it pretty good. We're talking about a cartel movie against the CIA. So I guess one man's normal is another man's bizarre and off-kilter, but here we are.
On.
Like Rob mentioned, today's movie is... I don't know, did you mention the title?
I did not. I just told that it was Mexican violence.
I think we should just keep talking for the entire episode without mentioning the title. So the entire audience is like, what are they talking about?
Well,
maybe we talk about the actors enough.
One of my major points is how you pronounce the title, so we have to talk about the title.
Oh, all right. So we're going to have to give it away, unfortunately. So the movie this week is, drumroll please, 2015 Sicario, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who everybody probably knows from Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Rob's favorite film of the last decade, Enemy.
Maybe of this year. I would say it's my favorite film of this year, Enemy. Because I saw it this year. I didn't see it the year it came out, whenever that was. But yes, I want to push back. Do they ever say the title of the movie in the movie?
No, unfortunately, there is no...
so we never get an actual pronunciation, right?
No.
I've only ever heard you say this word to me, Zack, Sicario. As we get to learn in the opening text of the movie, it translates to hitman in Spanish. But Sicario? What? Do we have an argument why it wouldn't be Sicario?
We can only hope that is the correct pronunciation. We've been saying it wrong this entire time.
I'm throwing away all of our notions of the Spanish language, of the Spanish dialects. Sicario. Can we just say that's our established pronunciation, Sicario?
So what you're saying is Benicio del Toro is a Sicario.
Yes. Well, what I am honestly saying is Benicio del Toro is a Sicario. That's what I'm saying. Zack is confused.
I am so confused.
Okay, yes, lost. Sicario.
In all the ways I imagine this conversation going, this was not one of them.
So yes, we are talking about, what year did you say it was, Zack?
2015.
2015. Okay, so fairly recent. That's keeping intact with what I said at the end of our Claws episode, that we're doing more recent things. 2015 is pretty close to recent. And Sicario, a good old cartel violence movie. We got the FBI and CIA versus the cartel. And as Zack said, I can never remember this guy's pronunciation. Denis Villeneuve?
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. There's like 12 extra letters than what we're pronouncing, which is why I'm confused. But yeah, can we talk about him a little bit? Just a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. What other movies of his have you seen, Zack? That's, I think, where I want to start.
I've seen Prisoners, I've seen Blade Runner 2049, and I have seen this.
Wow, okay. I have seen this, I've seen Enemy, and I saw Arrival. So we have no overlap except for this movie in his filmography?
It seems so.
Hot damn. Okay, I did not expect that. Did any of the other two than this you saw really stand out to you? Because, of course, we already mentioned Enemy stood out to me quite a bit. What about Blade Runner or Prisoners?
Yeah, Prisoners. Prisoners is when I think most people heard of him. That's really when he kind of hit the map, because that movie stars Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. Hugh Jackman is Hugh Jackman for those in Realville. So much like all these other, because Sicario, it's Hugh Jackman. But no, I like when Prisoners came out. I actually knew a lot about the movie. Funny story about Prisoners. I remember when I was in college, and some person's like, "Oh, I just saw Prisoners last night," and for some reason, I knew that Jake Gyllenhaal's character's name is Detective Loki. And I turned around to the guy, and I'm like, "Oh, so how is Detective Loki?" And the guy's like, "Who the hell is that?" I'm like, "That's Jake Gyllenhaal." He's like, "Oh, so you saw the movie?" And I'm like, "No," and it was a great conversation. Nice. I saw that on DVD when it came out. I liked it for the most part. It's way too long. I think it's like a 2.5 hour long movie where you probably could boil it down to maybe an hour and 45. There's Blade Runner 2049, which I imagine most people have either seen it or at the very least heard of it. Mm-hmm. I have very complex feelings on Blade Runner as a series. The sequel is infinitely better than the first one, but that's not saying much. If I could describe the Blade Runner franchise, the first one is like a hollow chocolate Easter bunny. It's fine, but it gives you a sugar high, no more, no less. The second one is a sugar or a chocolate bunny once again, but it's filled with marshmallow fluff. Ooh. It's better, but not by much. Okay. There you go.
Right on. Well, of the two that I saw, other than Sicario, Enemy was spectacular. I would absolutely recommend Enemy to everyone listening to this, including Zack. One of the things I look for in movies is if they really make me care about them. I really like cathartic experiences from the movies I watch. I threw on Enemy late at night, and very much like Zack with Claws, for the first 15 or 20 minutes, I really thought I should turn it off. I was really like, this is boring, this is pointless, why did I choose to watch this? I could go watch Law and Order and be happier than watching this boring movie. And then this movie, literally one shot in this movie, made me stand up, and I stood for the remaining hour and 40 minutes, I think. I was so enthralled in Enemy. I loved it. I recommend it. Maybe we'll talk about it on here. Arrival, not so much. I fundamentally disagree with the premise of Arrival. Zack, I can see Zack right now. He's got 2 spray bottles of what I can only assume is battery acid. It might be battery acid in one and something else that reacts with battery acid in the other. I fundamentally disagree with the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, but that is a story for another time. The question I have for us, Zack, for both of us, because between the two, we've kind of seen a lot of his movies, maybe all of them. I'm not familiar with his entire discography. Do all his movies start with text? Did Blade Runner 2049 and Prisoners, did they have words before any shot, much like Sicario does? We get the definition of Sicario, before the movie begins. There's text before Arrival, I'm pretty sure. There's absolutely text before Enemy. I think it says chaos is order unorganized, or something to that extent. What about your movies, Zack? Do they have text at the start?
I don't remember. I think Prisoners, I don't remember. I've only seen Blade Runner 2049 once. If you're telling me that the other two have text, I'm inclined to believe that they probably do. Maybe not Blade Runner 24. Well, Blade Runner 2049 has to. That is a very dense movie walking into it, like continuity wise. So
okay,
I'd be hard pressed if that doesn't have it. Prisoners, no idea.
Okay. Well, I think that's so. Of course, this is nothing new. If you think of text before a movie, Star Wars is the first thing that comes to everybody's mind, I would imagine. But that has a very unique way of presenting the text, at least the Star Wars that everybody thinks of, with the title crawl. This is just straight up words. Sicario, I actually think we get multiple shots of words. I think there's 2 whole like frames. I might not be using the right term, but there's 2 kind of scenes of text at the beginning. Enemy only has 1. What do you think about this, Zach? I mean, I don't know if this is a question I've ever posed on Cinemodities before, but there's certain things that when I notice directors doing them, I'm just kind of like, why? And this is one of those things. I think if I directed a movie, I wouldn't put text at the start. I don't think that really works at the beginning of movies. So what do you think?
I think you have to look at it 2 separate ways. Like one, like something like Star Wars, it's context for new audience members. It's a way of it's kind of like an elevator, so to speak. So people who aren't on the ground floor have a way of accessing the material.
You're right, and I should qualify what I asked you, because there's a big difference between the text we see, for example, at the beginning of Sicario, and the text we see at the beginning of A New Hope. The text at the beginning of A New Hope or any of the Star Wars movies, that is what Zack said. It's the elevator. It's setting the stage. The enemy and the Sicario text is just kind of like a few lines that can we really expect the audience to remember? I think that's the thing I'm more confused about. I would never put a sentence, because I would never think that the audience is going to carry that with them the whole movie. Not that they're that they can't. They just won't.
Well, I think it's a matter of looking at it. Like, one is like for Sicario, it's aesthetics. I would push back that going back to Star Wars, I think the opening crawl for A New Hope is aesthetics. It's not a crutch, because everything that's said in that opening crawl is not meant for. Well, when people originally watched that film, no one was meant to understand what that meant.
Yes,
it was meant to set a mood, much like Sicario does. Again, I can't speak to Enemy or Arrival. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this is intended to be a crutch. Like when you go into Star Wars Episode 45 and it begins with a crawl, that is a crutch. This is done as or like I said, it's an elevator up to the 10th floor. It's not meant for you to have to take the stairs. But with this, I think it's there for aesthetics. It's meant there to, because again, it's worth noting that it begins with, obviously, Sicario means hitman in Spanish, but it also was, what was the other one about?
It was the foundation of the term, where the idea of a Sicario or a hitman or just that concept was from ancient Rome, when there were certain people who would kind of come in and force others out, or force them or kill them forcefully and take their property, something like that.
And I think that's meant to set a mood. It's meant to establish. Yeah, it's like almost like an establishing shot, but instead of images, it's text. It's an artistic decision.
Fair,
now, like I said, I would imagine like the Blade Runner 2049 version of that, whether it does exist or not. Rob and I will find out about that, and you'll hear another Rob breaking up. Hey kids, Zach's wrong. Blade Runner 2049 didn't have an opening crawl.
I don't think Zack has been wrong yet, so we can only hope.
We can only hope that we get this break in. And cue the break in.
Hey kids, Zack is right. Blade Runner 2049 has basically a book at the start of it. But Rob is wrong. Arrival has no text at the beginning other than the name of the production company.
So, and where Blade Runner 2049 obviously is meant for people. Like, again, there's people seeing that movie who have not seen the first one, so you have to give them entrance into it. But with Sicario, nobody needs to formally read up on the semantics of that word in order to fully appreciate the film.
Yes. So I will say that earlier I mentioned that I don't usually like text at the beginning of movies. That is not an absolute. I think at the beginning of the Guy Ritchie movie Revolver, we actually get like a lot of text, but it is things that come up later in the movie, and they come up quick enough for you to remember that we had seen it in words at the start. So I really thought that worked. And also, with Zack and our audience, for how much you know about me so far, you have to know that I sat down, I turned on Sicario, and as it was starting, I was like, oh my god, I don't know what Sicario means, I should Google it. And as I was picking up my phone and the movie gave me the definition, I got a boner. Like that is the greatest thing. When the movie gives me information that I wanted to know, I got a boner.
Good for you.
That's coming up. That line is in the movie. There's a reason I'm saying I got a boner, because someone in this movie says they get a boner. There's a reason I had an erection at this point.
Good for you. So we've been talking 15 minutes though, but we haven't gotten into it yet. Rob,
yes.
I'm the one who suggested this to you, so
yep,
I think you can infer that I enjoyed it. So did you enjoy this?
You know what? When I watched the movie, as I was watching it, I felt a little out of the loop. I think that's a good way to put it. In my notes, I have that I think while I was watching this movie, I might have been having like mini blackouts because every scene when they were doing something and it was really tense, I was kind of like, why are they there? Like, why is this so tense? For some reason, while I was watching this movie, I had some difficulty in understanding motivations of actions. I don't know. I mean, Zack even gave me, it had subtitles. I was reading it while I was watching it, but, there was something I wasn't catching. Like, the whole first scene where they go down to Mexico, I'm like, why is this a big military operation? Why is Emily Blunt there? Like, aren't they going to talk to somebody? And when they go extract somebody, I'm like, oh, I missed that. I didn't know they were extracting somebody. I thought they were going to meet somebody. So as I was watching this, I felt a little distant from it. But after I watched it, and I thought about it, and I listened to my commentary, and I made my notes, I actually started to think about this movie, and I was really tempted to watch it again. Literally, from the moment I stopped watching this movie, from when it ended, to now, when we're talking about it, my interest in this movie has only grown. I didn't go back and watch it again, but I'm really tempted to do so because I feel there was more there that I didn't grab onto that first time. And so to answer your question, Zach, I fucking loved it. It was great. A movie pushed me away, but drew me back in, kind of in the inverted way a movie is supposed to do. And I'm thrilled by that fact. So yes, Zach, I loved it. I'm going to watch it again. I'm even tempted to say I'm going to go see the sequel.
Okay, there's a lot to dig in there.
I jumped into a bit, but man.
First,
palate cleanser.
But before we get into my thoughts on this, I want to do we don't usually do this here, but I think this is a major facet of the viewing experience or understanding this film. I think we should do a plot breakdown. Spoiler alert for a movie that's been out for almost 3 years. The movie stars Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin. Emily Blunt is an FBI agent who is brought into a covert operation to disrupt the Mexican drug cartels and their operation. Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro are shady government people. We really don't have a firm grasp on what or who they are, who they work for until very late in the film.
Oh, and I was going to say ever. I was going to say we don't have a firm grasp on who they are.
Nah, I've seen it now 3 times and I have a pretty firm grasp. Actually, I want to get into my thoughts because a lot of what Rob brought up is what I want to discuss. But I just want to give a breakdown because this is not a movie. Like when we're talking about Sophia the First, we can kind of just talk about how stupid it is without having to kind of give our audience some breadcrumbs to follow us.
I found a book inside my book.
Clover, I found this book inside my book.
There you go. This is the stable? So, this is not something where we can just kind of throw you into the deep end and expect you to kind of tread water along with us. But no, the whole point of the movie is that Emily Blunt is kind of thrown into this really dark world where it's a theme of this movie along with many other films in the post 9/11 era of cinema. And as time goes on, she learns what Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin are up to. She corrupts more and more of herself. I don't want to give any more of the plot away because I think we could discuss this film in length without giving away major plot beats. But I think that's the easy way to say it. She's a clean-cut FBI agent, and she's dragged down into the muck. She has to compromise.
I'm trying to think of what you could give away about this movie.
You can give things. Like there's elements of this that if they're coming, it kind of ruins the moment for you. Like we can say, oh, when this actor shows up, they're this. And
you know what?
That's fair. The scene. That's fair. Undercut scenes, but I don't think you can ruin this movie for anybody because I think this movie does a very good job of standing on its own. But you could definitely undercut some of the. It's also a very tense movie. This is not there's a lot of dramatic tension. It's very suspenseful. It dials things up to 11. And I think, so like I said, I don't want to give too much away. But no, getting into what Rob was saying. So that's the breakdown of the plot in the most briefest way possible.
I would like to add one thing that Zack did not mention. Emily Blunt attempts to smoke a cigarette. I don't think she ever actually gets it lit in the movie, but I found that to be a very major part of the movie, that she wants to smoke a cigarette and can't.
Well, that's also very symbolic of her entire conflict as a character further into the film.
It's also a woman smoking a cigarette, which I think we've established is one of my favorite things in movies.
Okay, that's okay. This might not be the breaking new ground for Rob, but it's the breaking new ground for Zack.
I mean, Emily Blunt is no Haviland Morris from Gremlins 2. Like, I'm still going full on Team Haviland Morris, chain smoking with ambition. That's a winning combination. Emily Blunt screaming at people and not being able to light a cigarette. That's like first step of the ladder.
I no comment.
But yeah, that's my one addition to the plot. Emily Blunt attempts to smoke.
Thank you. Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. But no. So when I first saw this film, I think I told Rob this briefly. I saw this. It had to be right after the DVD came out. Got it from my local library because people were talking about it. Watched it. Didn't have that strong of an opinion on it. If anything, much like Rob said, I think this is a very disorienting movie. Intentionally so. It's not because it's an incompetent filmmaker, but I think it's meant to do that because the whole point of Emily Blunt's character is that she's being, again, much like our audience, she is being thrown into the deep end of the pool with a lot of what's going around with her, with like in Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro are doing, and she really doesn't know which way is up half the time because the plot and the actions of Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin are just so quick and loose and fast that she just kind of goes along with the flow. She like Rob said, there's a point like, oh, they get on a plane, then they're in Texas, then they're going to Juarez, Mexico, and then this happens, and it's just like it pinballs around. Where like it kind of just hits you, and you're like you have to kind of go with it. There's actually a quote in the movie where one of the character or one of the not side character, but like one of the like. Not extras, like hits another one of the main characters, like, just let it happen, baby. Just let it go.
Just lay back, baby. Let it happen.
And that's kind of what the movie's telling you after the Juarez, Mexico scene.
I thought you were going to reference the line that Benicio del Toro says. He states to Emily Blunt, "Nothing will make sense to your American ears."
Listen. Nothing will make sense to your American ears.
I thought that's
a great line.
I thought like at that point in the movie, which is this is before they go to Juarez, I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to understand anything.
Well, like I said, that's what I think that's the whole thing of the movie is that you're not until you like I said, I've watched it 3 times, and like I said, the first time I watched it, I didn't think much. I didn't really think much. I watched it, I'm like, this is like it's a well-made film, but it's nothing I would call spectacular. It's very disorienting. It's very cold. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, I knew what they were going for, fine. And then I hadn't seen it, and it had to be, at least 2 years. And one day, I'm like, I think I saw, because they announced the sequel, and there was a trailer for the sequel, and I heard it announced. I remembered enough about the movie. I'm like, how on earth would you make a sequel about this? Like, I had no idea how you make a sequel about this. And I watched the trailer, and the trailer was like almost as incomprehensible as a trailer can be. I'm like, I have no idea how you're going to sell people on seeing a sequel based on this trailer because it's just like, what? And so I didn't think much of it. I'm like, I'll watch it when it comes out on DVD. I'll get it from the library. And then like another couple of weeks went by, and I'm like, I really for some reason it's got inside my head again. Like, I really want to watch Sicario. And I'm not kidding you. I turned like an hour after I had that thought, I turned cable TV on, and just starting on FX was Sicario. And I'm like, well, this is a sign I have to watch the movie now. Like it really was. Like, it's one of those spooky things that happens. I call it, I think I'm going to coin the term right here. It's, quote, the universe winking at you. When you just, like, again, I know Rob in his scientific mind would call it a coincidence. But when you think about something, it just happens all of a sudden out of thin air. Like, I had no idea it was going to be on TV. And what's the likelihood at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, I'm thinking about this movie. And then less than 2 hours later, I turn on TV just as it's starting.
Okay, let's call it, I will accept if we call it either the universe fucked your brain or God fucked your brain. I'll accept both schools of faith. But that's brain fucking if I've ever heard of it. Right? I
call it the universe winking at you, but sure, there can be penetration involved. Why not? So there was that. So I watched it the second time. And I usually hate watching things on on cable TV.
Yeah, who doesn't? There's commercials.
No, I don't care about commercials. I usually I know.
Oh, wait,
relax.
what's the Zack clip from my response to True Detective? You are the worst human being.
Wait,
hold on. I have to do my Marge Simpson impression. You are the worst human. Damn it! I watched Simpsons yesterday. I can't do a good Marge Simpson.
Okay. I didn't say that correctly. I have a DVR. What I usually do if there's something I want to watch and I'm not taping it, I put it on, and I usually do something for like 15, 20 minutes, so I have a buffer so I can fast forward through the commercials. I create a buffer, like that's what I usually do. The reason why I don't like cable is because they edit things. Like I am a hound for original, like the cut of things. Like I don't like things trimmed down for time or content.
Yeah,
and especially something like Sicario, I was terrified that they would edit the crap out of the movie. But I was in luck. It was on FX. And FX, like as I was watching it again yesterday, since watching it on FX, I had bought the Blu-ray. And as I was watching it, there's only one sequence that wasn't even cut out. It was trimmed slightly, maybe like a fraction of a second, and another scene was blurred out. And that was it. So, like, gotta give FX credit. FX does not edit crap. And the only two scenes that were cut down when the little, it's not a garage, but like the little like mini garage, oh my god, what would you even call it? The shed. The little like shed in the beginning of the movie, and you see the guy's like exposed brain. That was cut out. They cut, like, the arm is still there in the FX cut, or I guess the TV broadcast cut, but the brain exposed is missing. And when they're going through Juarez and the people are strung up by their heels, they're blurred out. Like you can tell there's a person hanging there, but they're blurred out.
Yeah. Oh, they blur out the whole person, not just the genitals?
I'm pretty sure they blur out. I think they maybe not the head, but like the torso is clearly blurred out, like everything. Okay. From neck down to maybe top of knees.
Gotcha.
But like no, I watched it on FX. I'm like this is great, and like it's one of those things. Like I don't think I talked to Rob about it yet, but it was floating out in the ether. It's kind of like because I couldn't figure out what we would put it in, like a series. Because there's really outside maybe doing a crime movie series or like a drug series,
which Zack is never going to do because he knows as soon as he offers up anything related to crime, I'm going to pitch him an infinite amount of Law and Order episodes.
Well, I'm actually
he will never bring that to me.
I'm a little surprised at Rob's reaction to this. Like, I was honestly expecting an opinion from him. It's like, Zack, I want to like this movie, but I can't. You know me. I am a drug fiend. And this movie is obviously not pro-drug fiend. So how can I like a movie that stomps on the thing I love? And that's what I was kind of like when he said he loved it, I'm like a little bit shocked. I was expecting him to take that angle. That sounds like an angle he would take. It's like, Zack, real well-made movie, but gotta protect my drugs. And
Zack, to be fair, I don't love all drugs. I love specific drugs.
But still, I would imagine Rob would shield the drugs over the movie because this is not a very it's not an anti-drug movie, but it's like
with the dinosaurs. Who gives? The dinosaurs aren't real as far as I'm concerned. The movie can do whatever the fuck they want with them. This is a movie's depiction of cartels and drugs. Who cares what they do with them, you know? That's how I feel. That's
how you care. But I think it's a very realistic take on that.
Zack might think otherwise, but I'm not very ingrained in the cartel community. I
never said that. I said drug fiend, not a cartel fiend.
Well, this movie isn't about drug fiends. It's about the cartel inner workings, I feel.
But I would imagine
have no
those
knowledge.
Are complementary terms.
Yes, every time I go into the actual storefront to buy my marijuana, I'm basically going to a cartel leader. Yes,
you're going to Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin.
I'm like, yes, I would certainly love to buy this legal marijuana from the cartel.
But so going back to the whole thing, watch it the second time. I enjoyed it, but I still didn't know what to make of it or how I was going to broach the topic with Rob. And then I went to Target one week, and they had the film for $5 with a 20% off coupon. And so for $4, I said, how can I go wrong?
I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's funny on the website. It was like, I remember looking on the website. It was like $25. I'm like, I'm not spending $25 on that. And I went to the store. It's like $5, and I'm like, sold. Then it's like, oh, there's a coupon for an extra $1 off. And I'm like, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, Target has some great deals. Yeah, you gotta go to Target.
Oh man.
At Bullseye.
Okay.
But no, and I watched it yesterday for a third time, and much of the now that I know what I'm getting myself into, much of the disorienting effect is gone because I know the twists and turns the plot takes. And I guess I think this is I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite films, but I think this is a movie that if it came out maybe 20 years ago, would have been like a movie that would have like rocked everybody. Like this feels like Traffic. Like when Traffic was like in 2000, another Benicio del Toro film.
Yep.
I feel like this would have been just that. Where like people was like nowadays, this movie. Like I'm kind of amazed this got a sequel because it didn't make a ton of money at the box office. And this is one of those movies I'm like it's amazing how some of these movies do well, but like 15, 20 years ago, I think this would have blown the socks off people.
That's an interesting point. I feel like the material that this movie deals with, the cartel violence, the American government doing whatever they can to stop the flow of drugs from Mexico into the southern part of the United States, I think that's something that now and in 2015, people were, I don't want to say familiar with, but ready to palate. They were ready to view that in a movie. 20 years ago, I don't think anybody was. Sure, the same thing was happening, but I actually, that would be a really, really cool experiment. If we could run it, of course we can't. That would be awesome to see how this movie would fare in kind of previous years' audiences. That's a really interesting point.
I think it can. I think it's Traffic. I think Traffic is the example that if you take Traffic's a different movie than this.
Yeah.
I think that this whole element that you sit there, and obviously things aren't sophisticated. Like you obviously don't have drone technology and GPS so is prevalent where it's like, oh, you can have all these things. But like if you strip the movie down to like 90s era of doing this, and you still have someone like Benicio del Toro's character, who's kind of like pretty much like a Jason Bourne mixed with a little bit of James Bond.
Yep.
And like I said, I think this is one of those movies, again, because this movie did not make a lot of money. I think it made like $85 million worldwide. So like this was not a movie that sat there. Like it had a couple Oscar nominations, but unless you were really, had your ear to the ground with movies that Oscar season, you really were not aware of this. I don't think and that's why, again, the sequel is kind of shocking. Because I don't think anybody's really. It's not like John Wick, where the first John Wick came out. Like this was like another like a John Wick, where like it came out of nowhere, didn't make a lot of money, but like home video sales were like out of this world. And never mind, John Wick's also an infinitely more pulpy premise.
Oh, absolutely. Who can't get behind? You killed my dog. I'm gonna kill you. Like who can't get behind that?
That's this is just like, again, we're having a difficult. Like we summed up what this movie's about. But it's hard to, like, you can't just, like, John Wick's a movie you could play for pretty much anyone, like, over the age of 12. And, like, they'll appreciate it.
Yes.
This is, like, you really have to be kind of prepared for what you're about to watch and have an open mind for the twist. Not because the content's bad or anything, but just for the twists and turns it's going to take you on the journey.
I would say for the twists and turns, and really more generally for the tone. That was something that kind of caught me off guard when I watched it, because, I threw it on really only knowing that Zack had told me about it. It was by a director of one movie I loved, one movie I didn't love, and we were doing it for our show. And, honestly, that, like, first shot where the fucking FBI truck drives into a building, I was like, whoa, I did not expect that. And that really set the tone for the whole movie of, I think you mentioned it before, it's very tense. And that's something that, I think you have to be ready for. I think, not to jump ahead of ourselves, but if I was going to show this to anybody as a late night movie, they would probably be upset because it keeps them awake because there's so much adrenaline in the beginning of it, with the truck driving into the building, Emily Blunt almost getting her head shot off, and then finding 50 million bodies in the walls. That's a really tense opening.
It's also, it's definitely a creepy visual because obviously they shoot through. Emily Blunt almost gets like you said, her head blown off, and they start going through the wall. Like obviously they see the hole in the wall, and they start pulling things apart. And it's a very creepy visual. The fact that you have bodies buried vertically upright in all the walls. It is
a creepy visual, but I'm sorry to cut you off, Zack, but we have to agree that is not a long-term solution. There was no way to prevent those bodies from decaying. There was no way to. Wasn't only the heads wrapped in plastic or something?
Well, I think that's part of that. It's interesting you mentioned that because that is part of it, though. Is that the bodies are there. They're propped upright somehow. It's never explained how they're propped upright.
Yeah, it's just like their center of gravity is aligned so they can rest against the rafters or something. Is what we are led to believe.
Which is I'm not a doctor here, but I'm pretty sure that's physically not possible considering a decomposing corpse.
Neither of us are doctors.
Stiff as a board.
Neither of us are doctors, Zach.
No. But like I said, the bag over their head, it's a very ghoulish visual because you cannot see faces. It's just you have a bloody body and you have this plastic like void of a face.
That's a good point because you can't see their faces. There are shots of individual bodies, or maybe 2 or 3 end individual bodies where you just see the head and you can only make out the condensed filled bag that they suffocated in. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. You see no human features. You know it's a human because of the shape of the body, but you don't see the face. You just see the remnants of what killed them. Oh,
and that even ties into the whole thing that happens during the I don't want to call it the car. What do you call it? It's not a car chase through Juarez.
You're talking about like the first action scene where they do the Extraction Jackson?
Yeah, extraction scene, and you sit there.
Extraction Jackson. That's what we're calling it.
Oh God.
Because, like I said before, I didn't know they were extracting somebody, and I was really confused when they were going down there, and they got like a giant police military escort, like the Mexico police had a fucking turret on the back of one of their trucks to guide them, and I was like, aren't they going to talk to somebody? Like, what is happening? But then I realized they were doing Extraction Jackson, and it's Extraction Jackson, and that is both the act of what they did and the character's name that they extract. So I'm with you, Zach. That's what I'm saying. I'm just letting you know the definitions. But I'm with you. Extraction Jackson. Yeah.
Extraction Jackson. But going back to the bodies with Extraction Jackson, is that as they're going through the Juarez and they see the upside or the body strung up from the overpass.
Yes.
And it ties into that too. And even Benicio del Toro has the line. Is that's what the cartels do. They go so overboard, or their means of killing you is so extreme, it makes the people who are witnessing it saying, obviously, if someone was murdered so brutally, they must have had it coming to them.
They make people think they must have been involved. They must have deserved such a death because they did something.
I think that's the whole point. You're not just simply being murdered by the cartels. You're being, again, your whole humanity is being stripped from you along with your life. Yes. And Benicio del Toro brings that up again too, because I don't want to give it away, but that's the reason why he's in this world is because of what happened to his family, what the cartels did to his family. And just one thing I want to bring up plot-wise, we talked about like Emily Blunt being brought into this world. Mm-hmm. It's not like she's being brought into this world because or against her will or even reluctantly. That she's an FBI agent who's part of like a hostage rescue.
So when I looked into this movie afterwards, I was really interested to see that in the plot synopsis they refer to her unit as like an intensive response unit. It's something I had never heard of before, but I believe that's what it was called, intensive response. It's like, and it is a real thing. It's the people who go after the hostage situations and like the SWAT team situations and things like that, which was pretty cool. They once again, they gave me more knowledge. I love that.
All right. But like I said, that's what she's doing though. She's not a narcotics cop. She's not ATF.
She's in the field. She's getting shot at. That's the whole establishment of the first scene. She's in it. She's good at it. She cares about it.
Well, she's in it though, but her job is not to go after the cartels. That's not her explicit job.
Yeah.
So
hostage.
Benicio.
Yeah.
So Josh Brolin shows up, and it's another very clever scene where obviously her and her partner David Kaluuya, who everybody knows from Get Out, he's been in a bunch of other things. He was in Black Panther.
Yeah, I think it's Daniel. I think you said David, but I'm pretty sure it's Daniel.
It is. I'm sorry, Daniel Kaluuya.
I think it's Daniel.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, Bing Madsen. Bing Madsen is how I will forever know him as.
What is that from?
Bing Madsen is the main character of the Black Mirror episode 15 Million Merits. He is the main character. That is the best episode of Black Mirror. That is probably the best hour and a half of television ever. I love. That's before Black Mirror went to Netflix. That was back when it was on the BBC 1? No, 2? I think it was on BBC 2. If you've never seen Black Mirror, don't watch all of it. Netflix has ruined it. Netflix has stuck a giant skewer into Charlie Brooker that has killed him. They've ruined it. But if you watch the Netflix when it was on BBC, the episode 15 Million Merits, Daniel Kaluuya is the main character. It is one of the greatest things you will ever see.
All right. With that being said, he's Emily Blunt's partner, and they're after this whole raid in Arizona goes south, not south, but kind of blows up on them. And so they're sitting there, and Josh Brolin.
I should just have the clip of an explosion of the little house exploding. That's good. That's a good one.
And so Josh Brolin's talking to a bunch of her superiors, including Victor Garber, who's in this in a very, very limited role, but he's
stealing my thunder.
Yeah. So you have him, and obviously Josh Brolin's looking for not recruits, but I don't want to give it away because it's a plot point toward the end. But he's looking for someone to, what would be the correct term? Not interface with, but kind of like someone to do a dual investigation into this whole cartel. And she's given the thing of what you're doing. Really, I think about the cartels are doing all this nonsense. Nothing that you do is going to stop this. But if you come join.
So the thing that you don't want to give away is really the reason why she's there.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to give that away. Why she's there?
No, that part. I'm fine with that. If you don't want to give that away, that is one of my bullet points. I will just say that part of the movie, like really threw me for a loop. Like, it didn't blow me away. I wasn't like, what? Like, wasn't like, oh my god, plot twist. I was like, holy shit. Like, just very calmly. I was like, I didn't expect that. Like, that's a really low key kind of twist. I don't even know if I want to call it a twist.
It's once you've rewatched the movie a few times, it's obvious. Like you could literally spoil most of this movie in 3 words. We're gonna bleep it out, but I'm gonna say it to Rob. The entire movie is there.
Yes, yes, that is in my commentary. Literally after that scene where they like tell her why she's there, I'm like, oh, so.
And Daniel Kaluuya is very firmly aware of this. From the offset, he tells her, like, even from the moment they show up onto the military base and he's dropping her off, and they tell him you're not welcome, or not that he's not welcome here, but you're not allowed here. And he's
she's on the list, but you're not. Yep.
Yeah, and like he goes, what do you want me to do? Leave her off here? And she just kind of says, I'll get out here. I'll be fine. So, and I think, and this ties into even like, I know Rob brought up the whole thing with her smoking, her not being able to light a cigarette properly. But like, that's a thing with, because you think about it, when the movie first starts off, it's like there's no mention of the fact that she's quit smoking. Like, we just see, like, at first, like, every once in a while, she'll like ask someone to like bum a cigarette. And then like, as time goes on, you'll see her with like a pack of cigarettes, and like, she'll smoke one and just kind of like walk away from it. Like I said, I don't think she has a problem lighting the cigarette, but she never finishes one.
It's just it's really one scene, like the first scene where she tries to get a cigarette, and then like she's on the military base or whatever, and the other military grunt shows her, like, she looks at Juarez through the binoculars.
Yeah. Like
that scene, the first scene with a cigarette, I don't think that thing ever gets lit. Like, I think she's literally walking with an unlit cigarette in her mouth for part of the scene.
I think that's what he's trying to do, though, Denis Villeneuve, is that like it's her slowly. Oh God, not lower. It's also her. Oh God, her lowering her, not her standards, but her moral. Again, I guess her moral standards. And at the same time, she's also slowly entering this world that Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro, maybe more Josh Brolin than Benicio. Benicio del Toro is just like.
Yeah, Operative. I'm thinking like he's an independent player. Like, he's moving with other figures, but he's really working towards his own goals. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, but like, I'm trying to think of a word to describe, like a noun to describe what he is. It's Josh Brolin. Like I said, Benicio del Toro only uses, like, it's made as a point in the film that he's just, like you said, he's independent in the grand scheme of things. He just works with people that are going in the same direction as he is.
Yes. Until
they no longer serve his purpose, he just walks away. And that's why, again, he is this mysterious figure, because nobody knows. And again, Benicio del Toro plays this roll up to the tens. And
Yeah.
but anyway, but getting back to the cigarette thing, like yes, the first scene's her going up to the guy saying, "Can I have a cigarette?" And like Rob said, I'm pretty sure it's not lit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have that. And the very next time she wants a cigarette, she's oh god, what do you call it? It's the roundup of all the illegals. And she asks the other guy there, and she takes literally, like, because the guy's like, "Don't smoke that near them." She takes like 2 drags and then flicks it away. And then there's a couple more scenes. I think she's in the bar. She's doing all these other things. And then if you look at it, by the very end of the movie, it's very noticeable because she's sitting at a table with Benicio del Toro in her apartment, and she has a pack of cigarettes with the lighter, showing that before she was very reluctant to smoke. And as the course of the movie goes on, she takes a drag or 2, she smokes a cigarette, and by the end of the movie, she is a full-on smoker. And obviously what Benicio del Toro does to her at the very end of the movie, again, without giving anything away, that shows that she is firmly ingratiated in this world from now on. She doesn't want to be in here, but she is in it.
Yep.
And
she's
even
she's in this world, but she's not in the sequel.
Well, yeah. Well, because Emily, we'll get into. I have opinions on Emily Blunt as an actress. I don't want to say she's miscast for this, but like I know why, because she's a very talented actress. But I don't think this is the kind of movie that you should have Emily Blunt in. Emily Blunt never, like, she seems overwhelmed, but I feel like she's acting overwhelmed. But I never believe she's too broad-shouldered. I don't want to say broad-shouldered, but like she seems a little too confident for what she's involved with. Like, not saying you need like a scrawny woman who's like you don't need that, but she seems a little too sure of herself. Like, because when you think of Emily Blunt, I don't think of someone who's like cowering or someone who's like unsure of herself. Okay. Like, because it's funny. A couple days ago, I watched Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, and in that film is an actress called Rebecca Ferguson, who really never did anything. I don't think she's done much after.
Is that Tom Cruise's wife in those movies?
No, that's Michelle Monaghan.
Oh God, I haven't seen any of them, so I'm shooting in the dark. Okay, I don't know who this is.
Rebecca Ferguson was kind of like really her major like thing that she's ever been in was Mission Impossible 5.
Oh, Michelle Monaghan was the True Detective wife, right?
Yeah, she's also Tom Cruise's wife in the Mission Impossible movies. That they only mentioned in like one and a half movies.
Okay.
So, but someone like Rebecca Ferguson, for those who have seen her in other things, like I think she'd work better in this because she can play strong, but at the same time, like could play that like I don't know, like I say, like I'm overwhelmed by the situation. Like I feel like if Emily Blunt is like out of like 10 out of 10 ways being overwhelmed, she's 9 out of 10, but there's still like that 1/10 out there where it's like there's something off here. I don't entirely believe that you feel lost in all this. And there are certain parts where you can really do feel her just like, I know there's one point in the movie, and Rob will insert the clip here, like during Juarez, when everything does eventually hit the fan, where I think she has the line, "What the F are we doing here?
What the fuck are we doing?"
And it's like, and that's like the moment where you really kind of feel the enormity of the situation, where it's like, what, like you think about like what, like it's like in action movie terms, like if you're watching this exact same sequence in John Wick, you'd be like, oh, neat. I can't wait for John Wick to shoot somebody in the face again. But like, considering this is a very grounded movie, there's no surrealism here. This might be the most down-to-earth, grounded movie we've ever discussed so far on the podcast.
I don't know. Fantastic Planet.
I was going to say Batman versus Superman. I think that's the most grounded movie.
I don't know. You want to talk about grounded?
Green spears that can murder men that can fly.
Yeah, let's get Endless back in here, where he's building a staircase. That was grounded.
There you go.
So, no, I'm really glad you bring up this point, Zach. Well, a lot of the points you brought up. But I want to focus on that last one. I did somewhat agree with you on a previous point of Emily Blunt not being the right person to cast. Just, I guess, to give you my opinion, I'm not a big fan of Emily Blunt overall. I thought maybe like a Liv Tyler in this role would have been not so bad. Something like that. But, at the end of the day, I don't think I have a lot of problems with Emily Blunt. The thing I want to point out, though, is you mentioned that Emily Blunt has the line where when they're in Juarez kind of trying to cross the border back in the United States with their Extraction Jackson guy, they're like, or she says, "What the fuck are we doing here?" Because they're basically like, "We think there's a gun in that car. Let's swarm that car." Like, that dude has neck tattoos. He's a cartel member, basically. I didn't pick up on it there. I honestly did not pick up on the kind of the fish out of water situation that this movie is presenting. I picked up on it after that scene. After the American, the people working for Del Toro and Josh Brolin, they basically shoot up 2 cars of people with neck tattoos solely because they have neck tattoos. And then they get back to the base in like El Paso or whatever, and Emily Blunt gets out of the car and goes, "What we just did is illegal."
Yeah, a little nutty, huh?
Nutty, yeah. Yeah, that was fucking illegal. You want to start a war?
So she has that line. Do you remember that line in this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Zach. I have become so okay with blatant, cold-blooded murder in movies that her saying what we did was illegal was the eye-opener for me. Them actually murdering the people wasn't the eye-opener. I was actually like, I had to take a step back from the movie when one of our characters was like, what we just did was illegal. We can't kill people. I was like, she's right. They can't kill people. So
well, I don't even think that line. I think that line is multi-layered. I think that's one layer of it is killing people.
Oh,
but I think on top of it, it's the whole idea is like you have domestic operatives, U.S. operatives,
yes,
going into another country.
Yep.
Having some sort of extraction that's probably
Extraction Jackson.
Yes, Extraction Jackson, and they're pulling somebody out, and you have this whole thing where again they make it. That's one thing that's hit upon very repeatedly in this film is that unless they are from like the military base, consider them an enemy. It's like the Mexican federales are just as corrupt as the guys with the neck tattoos.
Yep, watch out for the state police. They're not always your friend.
Yes. And so you have that. So it's not bad enough that you're killing people. It's the fact that as you're going into a choke point of a border entry, you have this all happen. You're having because it's still Mexican soil. I think that's the thing she has a problem with. You're still on Mexican soil and you're doing this. You're going into a sovereign country, extracting someone without probably permission of the Mexican government, and then doing all this stuff, then killing people on another country's soil, and just tearing out of there. And there's really nothing. There's no reports filed. There's nothing. And I think that's what disturbs her on the ultimate level is that there are so many layers of rules being broken. Pretty much every rule is being broken, and she has no idea what the end game is as to why all these rules are broken. Because again, that's a major theme of this film too. Her and Daniel Kaluuya are like, stop keeping us in the dark. And eventually, they do tell them. They just tell them this is what we're doing. And eventually, all of her Emily Blunt's higher ups tell her, it's like, what are they doing? Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro, and we're just told very matter of factly they're there to stir the pot. They are there to just rile everybody up and just wait for the pieces to fall down, and that's essentially what it is. And it's funny. Considering this is a very disorienting film. Once you think about it, and after you've seen it a couple times, it's rather simplistic. There's not as many twists and turns. It still has a lot of tension. Even as I was watching the Juarez scene now for the third time, you can just feel the tension being dialed up every single time. But again, like Emily Blunt, though, the problem with Emily Blunt is ever since she's been cast as Mary Poppins, I just can't take her seriously. it's like I can't take anybody seriously because again, Emily Blunt can act, and plus I've seen interviews with her. She's not very likable. Jack's
throwing shade at Emily Blunt.
Like I said, and so it's hard to look at her like she does a good job. She does a good job here. Plus, it'd be hard. Like you said, what Liv Tyler?
Yeah, that was. What I
don't think Emily Blunt is at. It's this weird sort of. Emily Blunt is competent, yet I don't think she has the physical appearance.
She's too skinny. She is way too skinny.
No. I think that's the problem, though, is that she looks a little too lean and mean to be overwhelmed by Benicio del Toro.
You think lean and mean? I don't think. I think lean and timid. That's what I got.
No, because I think she comes across like I think about it, she's in the very beginning of the film. She's shot at and she takes the guy down. But it's like she doesn't. For someone who almost had their head blown off, and never mind the blowing up of the shed. Like, she doesn't seem too overwhelmed. Like, that she seems perfectly all right with. She's like, oh, someone just blew up a shed. It's like, that's bad. Like, we see her, like, in the shower. She's like, I don't know, she's stitching up her she has, like, a cut on her head.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
FBI agents don't get hospital treatment, apparently. They have to treat their own head wounds after an explosion.
But, like, that's what I mean. But it's like, she seems too, like, well put together. So, like, that happens to her, and she's more, like, she's disturbed by it, but at the end of the day, she's fine. But, like, the more and more that Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro just keep pushing her, she seems to be, like, by the end of the movie, she's practically lost her mind. And I think, and the problem is that I think, again, not to get into the end of the movie, though, when she makes a very specific choice at the end of the film not to do something on top of the pack of cigarettes, which symbolizes the ultimate destruction of her, not morality, but just her reluctance to accept, or I guess her acceptance of corruption. It's the whole idea of that. I think she's realized that either she's not crazy, she's fully in this world now.
Yeah.
And he even has the line here, goes, move to a small town where law and order still exist. And that's where, like, I'm trying to think of an actress that can play both, what's the word? Competent, yet would be distraught over something like this. Like, it's a really weird balancing act.
It is.
Like
I
really
said, is.
You need to find an actress that it's not like, I would like, it's kind of like almost like an Alien, like the first Alien, Sigourney Weaver, where, like, you can, like, at first they seem really timid, but, like, when the situation calls for it, they can stand up for it. It's a weird sort of, like, inverse of that. Like, at the beginning of the movie, she's fine with, like, all these things happening to her, and then as things just continually escalate. And it's worth noting that, like, all these things happen, and Emily Blunt has, like, not a meltdown over it, but slowly starts to come apart at the seams. Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin are just having the time of their life. Like, maybe not Benicio del Toro, but Josh Brolin, like, the whole time, all he's doing is chewing gum. Like, he is very, his character, we haven't brought him up a lot yet, but, like, his character is, as an actor, are very aware of the world they're in and their role in it. Like, we're introduced to him by looking at his sandals in, like, an FBI conference room.
Yep, and
like,
he asks Emily Blunt if she's married, if she has children.
Exactly. He knows what he's getting, and that's why I think that, again, like I said, I might not even be picking up on how savvy this film is, because Josh Brolin is picking her solely for her attributes. The fact that she is strong, she'll get the job done, but she can be unnerved very easily by these things and won't pursue them fully until she's entirely engrossed and corrupted by it all.
I don't want to. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't want to miss a point that I have before we move past it, because we mentioned it already. Just the idea that before we get into Brolin and Del Toro, which we have to get into because there's such a huge part of this movie, Emily Blunt and her character. Whether or not we think she is right for the role, just the role. When I actually realized what this movie was going for, I was really intrigued. We've mentioned it before, but let me bring it together. The perspective of this movie is really from a, I'm doing quotes, by the book FBI agent towards mercenaries she is tasked to work with. And that's really interesting. Would you agree with that, I would say, Zach? Would you agree that's somewhat of an apt description of this?
I wouldn't say mercenaries. I would say people who have, because I don't think they're hired. Well, Benicio del Toro maybe is that, but it's people who are they're very Machiavellian. It's
opportunistic,
like
Machiavellian. Yes,
it's ends justify the means. It's called. Our job is to ruffle the feathers of the cartels. And to basically cut I think the line of dialogue is cut the head off the chicken. And I think that's the goal, and nothing, again, anything short of accomplishing that cannot be tolerated.
Yes, and I find it immensely interesting that this movie really gives us everything from the perspective of Emily Blunt, the like I said, by the book FBI agent, and these other types of people who are ruffling feathers, who are breaking rules, who are doing things that this character had never thought to do or could be done. Now, this is why I think it's interesting. This is not anything new. We've had tons of movies with this kind of perspective before. But really, kind of in this day and age, I would have expected a movie that is just like, let's assemble the crack team who's going to kick ass and get the mission done. I was actually, when I understood what this movie was going for, I really enjoyed that fact that they gave us that conflict. This goes back to the point I said earlier, that I am so desensitized to cold-blooded murder in movies that I had no problem with, like, the shootout at the Border Patrol thing. Same thing here. I am so just ready to accept that every one of our characters is ready to kill and satisfy the goal, that I'm kind of blown away when we get Emily Blunt as a main fixture of the plot, who is not just uncertain of what they're doing, but uncertain of her own role in it. And that's really, really cool to me. I really like that aspect of this movie, and that's one of the things that grew on me, like I said, in the kind of days since I've watched it. I've thought about that perspective more, that juxtaposition, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said, that's interesting you bring that point up, because I think that's my biggest concern with, like, that's when I heard about the sequel, because Emily Blunt is our entry point into this world.
Mm-hmm.
Much like her walking into this world that Josh Brolin operates in along with Benicio del Toro.
She's a surrogate. She is the audience surrogate without a fucking doubt, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's what made the sequel's announcement so weird to me, because I don't know how you make a film, because, like, you think about it, you wouldn't want to live in the world unless you really are that type of a level of sociopath that Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro are, for a reason. You wouldn't want it, like, you wouldn't want to see that movie, because it's just basically, I don't want to say it's the Dirty Dozen, but, like, it's just people being tasked with just, again, causing havoc solely for waiting for someone to make a mistake so they can strike. And so even though that's an interesting movie, but I think at the end of the day, that is a John Wick level premise. Exactly. Not to take anything away from John Wick. John Wick is a very well-made series. I love that series. Yeah. But it's not, John Wick's not trying to be very heady, where this is. And
he killed someone with a pencil.
I know he did. I don't know how you make this, because I heard a quote from Josh Brolin about the sequel, where he said, if Sicario 1 is a comedy, this is like the Schindler's List compared to that.
God.
I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say Schindler's List, but he said something like, if the first one's a comedy, this is like a funeral in comparison.
This is Infinity War in comparison.
Well, that's kind of like, I think he might have even said that, considering the fact that Josh Brolin's in all these dumb movies now.
This is a Thanos prequel, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a Deadpool 2 prequel.
Rob does not actually believe that.
But no, like, that's what I mean. It's like, I don't know. Like, again, have you seen the trailer for Sicario 2?
No, I have not seen the trailer. I've just read the one-sentence synopsis that is about Benicio del Toro's character. I have some things about specific scenes. I have some things about specific lines that I would like to talk about. And then, of course, I want to talk about the sequel. But I think we should start with one of my biggest questions for Zack. Really about this movie. What's the point of Silvio, the Mexican cop? So for our audience, for anyone who hasn't seen this, for Zack, if he is, been smoking the reefer and forgot what movie we're talking about, at the very near the start of this movie, we get a scene where a Mexican man is woken by his son. His son wants to go to his soccer match. He basically shows a family life, and we are revealed very early on that this man is a Mexican cop. And we get a sprinkling of scenes with him and his family throughout the movie until very much near the end, Benicio del Toro takes him hostage. I would say it's hostage. He basically forces him to take him to the big bad guy, whose name I can't remember. Faluno Anscar.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Faluno Anscar. Perfect. So Zack, my question for you is, what's the point of this? This character dies. Spoiler alert. Benicio del Toro shoots him. The only thing I can think of is that, one, they're showing us this from the very beginning to explain to the audience that the negative effects of the cartel don't just reach the American side of the border. They also affect the Mexican side, which I buy. The other thing I can think of is that they wanted us to feel more tension in the scene with Benicio, and when he takes that cop hostage. What are your thoughts, Zack? Why do we have this? Why is this necessary? Why is it necessary to establish this cop has a son, has a wife, is trying to better himself. His son plays soccer. The father likes breakfast in bed. Why do we need this?
But does it have jalapenos?
Does it?
You don't remember that line of dialogue where it's
no,
like,
I don't. I'm upset.
The son wakes up. It's like, Papa, I have breakfast, eggs and coffee, and he's like, does it have jalapenos? See, and it's like he jumps out of bed for it.
Huevos.
Jalapeno.
Por supuesto.
Thank God. Thank God. Okay,
God.
so let me tell you, just across the board, I'm speaking for Zack as well. If your food doesn't make you feel pain, you're not doing it right.
I can get behind that.
So yeah, Zack, why? What is the point of the jalapenos, of the soccer, of the cop, of the Silvio?
I think when you brought up your 2 points, I think the first one's part of it, but not as much. I think it's established very early on with the lives of the Mexicans and how it affects them with the people that are strung up from the overpass.
Yeah, and that's the end of the movie, too. The big ending scene is that, they didn't stop anything. There's still gunfire and violence. And
that's the whole thing, though, is that is a theme of this movie, too, which is part of the demoralization of Emily Blunt, but to keep it back to Silvio, is that this is a vicious cycle that's just never going to end. Because, as Rob mentioned, scenes with Silvio and his son, who loves soccer, are punctuated throughout the film. And the whole point of that, I think, is that Silvio is meant to show that he's just a cog in this. Much like how Josh Brolin and Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro are cogs. Mm-hmm. Silvio is the other side of the tracks. He's their counterpoint to all this, and it's shown numerous times. Like when he's eating breakfast with his son goes over to lean over and touch his gun. It's worth noting that it's an automatic rifle. It's not a pistol. It's a weapon to cause a lot of damage. He says, "Don't ever touch that."
So I do want to just say that gun is beautiful. I'm not a gun freak or anything. I'm not against guns. I've shot guns. I respect any technology man has invented. The stylization of his weapon in this movie, I really, really liked. Like, they put the right amount of wear on it. The whole thing of the kid not touching it. The gun, Silvio's gun. Yeah, I really think that that one little scene stood out to me for how well done the gun in that scene looked. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a gun, done. It actually felt like something that he has had with him and used with him. And he would be like, no, I've seen what this thing can do. Because there's a big difference. There's a big difference between knowing what guns can do and knowing what a gun can do. And I won't get into we don't have to talk about gun politics and what guns mean to people, but that really stood out to me. That scene that you're mentioning where he's like, don't touch that, never touch that type of stuff.
I think that's part of it too. It's the idea of trying to keep the new generation removed from this process as much as possible. It's like, again, he's trying to shield this thing. Don't ever, again, I don't want, by touching that gun, you are opening a portal into this world. The world of Josh Brolin, the cartels, all of this.
Zach, do you have like a camera or a microphone in my apartment that you're reading my thoughts with and shit like this?
I think I have both of those. I have a camera and a microphone. I can see into the apartment. So
when we're not recording. When I'm sitting here naked in my apartment, do you get to see that?
No, I look away during those parts.
Because here's the thing. The 2 points I mentioned previously of why Silvio was in this movie, those were like my real points. But I have one more. I had one more that I was going to throw at you that I think you already kind of got at, and that we kind of got at with that gun scene. Here's my question for you. Did they include Silvio and his son so that the kid can seek revenge in the sequel?
Oh, no.
No? You don't think so?
No, Silvio's thing with his son is the whole point of that, it's supposed to be him. It's like Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt is just as naive and innocent at the beginning of this film as Silvio's son is. Okay. Completely removed from the world that Josh Brolin lives in. And by the problem is that by the thing is that though is that Silvio is trying to make a better life for his wife and child. And the only way you think about it, in Mexico, you probably don't make obviously you don't make nowhere near as much money as it takes probably to support a family. So he's probably, again, the movie doesn't lay this out. This is me inferring. He's probably doing this to make more money. So his son does. Think about it. They live in a relatively nice house. They have a decent kitchen. They have They seem to have a nice living. The wife
they got
doesn't
all the utilities, all the amenities. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that's being done to supplement his income as a police officer. And the problem, though, is that much like the choices of other characters, Silvio's openness, even though he's not letting his son touch the door, his way of keeping his son out of this world is at the same time opening a door for his son to enter it eventually. And then going through and yes, I think Rob is correct at the point too, that the point with Silvio and his son is supposed to add dramatic stakes to the very end with Benicio del Toro in the car.
Yeah, it makes us more invested in that scene.
But the thing at the end, because obviously we see the fact that his son asked him earlier, are we going to play soccer today or this? And he goes, no, I have to work tonight. And the scene ends there. And we don't see Silvio again, really, until he's trying to unload all the kilos of, I guess it's marijuana. And he's trying to sit there, get rid of all that. And then Benicio del Toro shows up.
No, it's got to be heroin.
Is it heroin?
I don't think it's marijuana.
Whatever.
Who would move marijuana across the border when you could just drive it from a medical state?
I know, but cartels can make money. Money. What do you think? What do you think? The day Colorado legalized pot, the cartel said, well, they beat us at our own game. Time to burn down all the marijuana.
Well, no, but I know the fucking day Michigan legalized medical marijuana, Pennsylvania became a fucking huge recipient of that. So
I know, but still, I would imagine the cartel is probably whatever. It's ambiguous.
So once again, contrary to what Zack thinks, me, Rob, is not well ingrained in the cartel universe.
Let's put it this way: I will defer judgment to the drug fiend amongst the two of us. So there you go. See, I will defer to your better judgment. As ignorant as you claim to be on this, I think I beat you in that category.
I think it's got to be heroin or coke. Like,
whatever it is, it's drugs. Whatever you want it to be.
Yes, generic drug A.
Yes, in Zachary World, that's copies of the Star Wars Holiday Special they're trying to smuggle across the border. That's what it is in Zachary World.
Whipster.
Exactly, that's what it needs to be. I think, obviously, the thing at the very end of the film with his son and his mother, the mother is taking him to the soccer game by her lonesome, and while all the kids are playing soccer, the soccer game is interrupted by these shots of gunfire, which I think that's
sequel revenge-inducing.
No, not at all. I think that would cheapen. If they did that, they would cheapen the movie. But no, the thing with the gunshots at the end is it's meant to show that the cycles. Think about it. Benicio del Toro. Spoiler alert, kills the cartel kingpin, and yet the cycle just will keep going on and on. Much like how
Beluno Vascar, I think I said his name was.
Whatever. And much like Josh Brolin says to Emily Blunt at the end of the film, until 20% of the country gets it out of their head that they don't need this crap, the cycle will go on, and all we can do is hope to regulate it. And that's what it is. Yep. And the cycle will continue to go on and on. There will be people on both sides fighting this war, yet at the end of the day, it will end in a stalemate unless something very major happens.
Yes. And I don't even need to get into it. I agree with you, Zach. I could go on for a whole episode about my opinion on drugs, different drugs, legalities of them. But I agree that that's what the movie's going for. That it isn't just a problem of our governments versus a cartel. The people, the humans, are a big deal of it. This wouldn't exist if there wasn't a demand for it.
Exactly. And I think that goes down to even the whole thing with Emily Blunt. I think it's worth noting that Emily Blunt is our main character, yet we do not end the film with her character. She has the second to last scene in the movie, and I think that's the whole thing. Emily Blunt, think about our two most innocent characters in the film, Emily Blunt and Silvio's son, both, obviously Emily Blunt's a descent into this world is rather clear, yet Silvio's is much more alluded to at the fact that obviously his game of soccer, i.e. his life, is interrupted by the sound of gunshots, obviously from some sort of drug feud or just basic violence. Mm-hmm. And Silvio's father was trying to remove his family from this conflict, but at the same time, because of his effort to try to push them away from it, tied them directly toward it, because obviously now it's a single mother and her child. Silvio's son. I don't want to declare Silvio's son to work for the drug kingpins, but chances are that's how you would probably earn money to support a decent living in the world that we're presented to in Sicario.
Yeah, oh man, I feel like with what you just said, Zach, I feel like I missed a huge opportunity. I should have gone back through all fucking 70 years of Law and Order's VU and found an episode that I thought was Silvio's son and Silvio's wife coming to America and tied it to this. Damn. That'll be a Cinemodities update.
Was Victor Garber in Law and Order?
Oh yeah, a few.
Okay, so there's our Law and Order tie-in.
Well, of course. I mean, we got a few Law and Order tie-ins if you want to talk about that. No. So Zach, I think we talked a lot about this movie as a whole, and I really like that, because this is a movie, as we started with this is something that is really different for us, maybe for Cinemodities, but guaranteed for the things we've done in the last few weeks. You know what? Sophia the First, claws, dinosaurs. Like, that's just nonsense. And this is a movie we both really enjoyed. We both really were able to think about. It instigated feelings in both of us. And I like that we talked about it as a whole.
I think this is the first objectively good movie we've talked about since Fantastic Planet.
Okay, I was about to say Fantastic Planet. I would say this is the most objectively good movie we've talked about since Frank Ocean's Endless.
That's not a movie, though.
That's true. That's a visual album. You got me there.
It's worth noting that we're 16 episodes into this, and this is our first legitimately good piece of filmmaking.
Well, I don't know. We did Total Recall. We both love Total Recall.
Yeah, but that was again, that's very tongue in cheek. Total Recall is great. Gremlins 2 is great.
But those have both become somewhat, we talked about this in our episodes, but I'm doing quotes, a cult classic.
Yes.
Where we're doing it more because it has a certain following and a reputation, rather than, hey, Sicario is 3 years ago. That type of thing.
Yes. And Sicario is by no means wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
No, not at all. Okay, well, Zach, if you don't have anything else overarching for this movie, I think I'm ready to get into some scenes that I want to talk about. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay. Well,
when do we get to snack time?
Snack is at the end.
Oh.
Yeah, snack is at the end. What are you talking about?
I really want some eggs with some jalapenos.
Here we go. So I'm going to go in order with this movie. And this is going to give us a chance to break down some more plot points, I think. The first thing I want to say is this is becoming a theme for me, and oh God, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Denis Villeneuve?
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. Okay, I'll have to cut Zack saying it over me saying it in the edit in the final episode. I really, really love and appreciate his use of wide, either overhead or landscape shots. Specifically in Sicario, when our characters are transferring from Mexico or the United States and going between the two, we get some great, huge aerial shots of Mexico, of Juarez, of El Paso. In Arrival, we get tons of these shots as well. They're obscured by a giant CGI alien spaceship, of course. Enemy, we get huge shots of the city that Jake Gyllenhaal lives in. Of course, in Enemy, every one of those is plagued by spiders. But man, Denis Villeneuve, he knows how to use those aerial shots. They are beautiful. Specifically in this movie, did those jump out at you? Like when we go to Juarez, when we go to Mexico, we get that music just pumping, like that, deep bass. And a huge shot of a helicopter, just flying through a valley. Man, that is beautiful stuff.
Obviously, I picked up on that. I really didn't pick up on it until my third viewing. I guess he does that in Blade Runner 2, but at the time, I just figured that was just there's a lot of that in the first Blade Runner, so I didn't attribute it to him.
Oh.
But like I said, I appreciate that for what it is. I didn't really pick up on any sort of meaning to it beyond just showing the kind of the expanse of just what's about to happen, the broad canvas at play here, or the background. Yeah, like I said, because I know there's a shot again, Rob mentioned it, Juarez, and there's when they're flying to El Paso. You see it when we're on the plane.
Yep.
But yeah, like I said, I don't have anything particularly interesting to say about that. Again, it's well done filmmaking.
Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I mean, when I watch any movie, I'm always looking at the cinematography and how they frame their shots. Even though I don't think we talk about it a lot, I really care about that artistic representation of what they're trying to show us. And there is something that I just absolutely love about those wide-angle, expansive nature shots. Like, that's what a movie should be. Show me something I can't just go outside and see, right? Like, that's what that escapism should be. Take me to the location this movie is existing in. And that's the one thing I will say, Denis Villeneuve, with movies I've loved and hated from him, or maybe loved and not loved, he has a great taste for that stuff. I love it. And on that same vein, during the scenes in Sicario, now here I'm talking specifically to Sicario, the music is done by Jóhann Jóhannsson. Zach, you ever heard of Jóhann Jóhannsson?
I've never heard of Jóhann Jóhannsson before.
Okay, Jóhann Jóhannsson is an Icelandic composer. I don't know. I think every time I talk to Zach about music, he just kind of glazes over and thinks about what he has to do after he's going to talk to me. So I am a huge fan of Icelandic music. I love Jóhann Jóhannsson. I've loved him for years. I have to look up the pronunciation of her name. Hildur Guðnadóttir. Absolutely fantastic. Sigur Rós, of course. Sigur Rós, we've never talked about on this podcast. Sigur Rós is one of the greatest bands of all time. Sigur Rós, the only way I can imagine Zach will ever have any idea who I'm talking about, Sigur Rós did the music for The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Zach's seen that movie, but I don't even know if he had noticed the music. If you've never heard of Sigur Rós, check out the album Agatus Brungen. Check out the album Valkyrie. They are beautiful. I cannot stress enough, Sigur Rós is one of my top 3 favorite bands of all time. And honestly, Jóhann Jóhannsson does the music for the first Sicario. Hildur Guðnadóttir, the other Icelandic composer I mentioned, is doing the music for the second Sicario. So when we eventually get a third Sicario, the music better be produced by Sigur Rós. Probably my favorite line in the movie. That's where I want to go next. When they get to Juarez, or I don't even think it's when they get to Juarez, when they get to the rendezvous with the person who's taking them through Juarez, the person is played by Jeffrey Donovan. He's Burn Notice. You ever see Burn Notice on the USA Network, Zach?
I know of it.
Yeah, so the guy who is like, they meet up, the guy who says, I got a boner. Like, he wears horn-rimmed glasses. That's Jeffrey Donovan. That's Burn Notice. When we first see him, we get the sense that he is very good friends with Josh Brolin. Like, Jeffrey Donovan's in the driver's seat. Josh Brolin's in the passenger seat. We get the whole scene from the perspective of Emily Blunt from the back seat. But they start talking about nonsense. And Josh Brolin has the line that basically says, did you hear about that conspiracy to sink Fiji? And Jeffrey Donovan says, come on, terrorists, leave Fiji alone.
Trying to get DOD to let me look into this conspiracy to sink Fiji.
Fiji? Leave Fiji alone, terrorists.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you pick up on this, Zach?
I didn't pick up on his response to it, but I know Josh Brolin
This
says
is the
that.
funniest. That is the funniest. That's my favorite line in the whole movie. Where one of them is like, "Did you hear about that conspiracy to sink Fiji? Come on, terrorists, leave Fiji alone."
Okay, Rob's looking at this and he's pissing himself over it.
That's so funny. That's sinking a whole island, and a famous island.
I know, but obviously that's meant to be hyperbole. But at the same time, though, it's like this is kind of like the world of Sicario. It's like you hear this thing all the time in movies. This comes more from like blockbuster movies. But it feels like Star Wars. It feels like it lives in its own world. like I remember when like Pacific Rim came out, people were saying that. I'm like, no, Pacific Rim feels like a very contained like universe.
Yeah.
And yet when you hear things like this is something I could very well believe that in the months prior to the events of Sicario, Josh Brolin was involved in some sort of conflict where terrorists were trying to do something on Fiji, the island of Fiji. And like that's something like, again, much how like before we were recording, I talked to Rob about the movie The Guest and John Wick. Like you'd love to see certain like movies just kind of like not tie into each other, but like all like, even if they never cross over, just be in the same universe. And that'd be like that'd be a fun one. Like what is going on in Fiji? Like that'd be a fun like thing. Like like it's like something obvious. It's kind of like Rob probably remembers this, but like they would do things like the comic book movies where like before the movie would come out, they'd release like a little like comic book that was like 20 pages and be like, oh, look what Spider-Man was doing before the events of Spider-Man 3.
I know the one-shot prequels. That's what they called them. They were one-shot prequels. It was hey, if you're at your comic book store, get this one issue and you'll get some extra info. They did one for Inception, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they did a one-shot prequel. I don't think it was one-shot. I think it was a web series.
Yeah, it was online. It's a web comic. Yeah. Web comic, yeah. That's something I like. Rob looks at the dialogue and starts giggling at the absurdity of it. But like I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, like obviously, like I'd want to know what that story was.
Do you think that's going to be the sequel? We're going to get some Fiji action?
I looked. It's funny. While you were on your music rant for like a half an hour, or at least felt like an hour, I read the synopsis for Sicario 2, and I'm kind of depressed now.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yes. I didn't know what the plot was. Like I said, I watched the trailer for it. It looked incomprehensible. Didn't think much about it. Just read the plot synopsis.
Okay.
Plot.
Okay, we'll get to that. That's going to be its whole segment, its own segment. So yeah, I think that was the first thing I wanted to say. Really, that that was my first big picture impression from this movie. Denis Villeneuve has great control over his aerial shots. I love them. But and the conspiracy to sink Fiji. That's what I said. But really, the next thing I want to bring up, almost maybe a minute or 2 minutes after the conspiracy to sink Fiji line, we get more aerial shots of the convoy driving through Juarez to get to their Extraction Jackson. At that point in my commentary, this is about 30 minutes into the movie, I was like, what the fuck is the point of this? Because usually, I might be coming at this biased for all the movies I've had to watch for Cinemodities. I was really like, I'm half an hour into this movie. I'm a quarter of the way into this movie, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. Literally, the only message I got from the first 30 minutes of Sicario was Mexico is bad, and I should be afraid of it.
I don't think Mexico is bad. Juarez is bad.
Well, yes, that's probably a more apt description of what I should have felt, but the way that the movie was presented and the whole line of nothing will make sense to your American ears, I was like, holy fuck, I should never go to Mexico. I clarified that feeling later on, but I felt that was worthy to point out that that's part of the disjointness and the disattraction I felt with this movie, that, a quarter of the way into it, when the action was hitting the fan, I was like, what are they telling me? What are they going for? And that's part of the reason, like I said before, I really like it. They kept me guessing. Very shortly after that, when I had that thought, they revealed that they're doing the good old Extraction Jackson. I mentioned that earlier. I thought they were... For some reason, I thought they were just going to Mexico to talk to somebody. And I was in my commentary, I'm like, how do they know this dude's going to be here? Like, are they just going and hoping this dude's going to be here? But then when they revealed it was Extraction Jackson, I
think it's worth pointing out that there is no character name. Like, he keeps talking about this Extraction Jackson.
Yes, his name is Guillermo, right?
Well, Rob is just making a fake character up off of a name that's just... Like, I think he said it so many times at this point, I think people who've not seen this film think this is an actual character.
Well, it is. It's a character and a scene.
No, it's... Oh, my God, no.
So the
Rob
first
is being very silly right now.
Is them extracting a cartel agent, correct?
He's somebody's brother. He's a cartel kingpin's brother.
He's a cartel agent's brother. So they are going to Mexico to extract someone. That person's name is Jackson.
No,
and
it's
they
not.
are extracting him.
No,
It's
yes,
Jackson.
the extraction is correct. The Jackson is not.
It's extract. No, I mean, yes, no one in this movie is actually called Extraction Jackson, but
You can keep saying the silly name, but you have to establish. You've said it so many times at this point. You have to establish that it doesn't exist.
Zack is right. Zack is right. I should give the context for my definitions. Absolutely. Okay, here we go.
I think Rob's being like Denis Villeneuve. He's trying to overwhelm you like he does to poor Emily Blunt. He's trying to disorient you. He's trying to overwhelm you.
If I was directing Emily Blunt, she would have a successfully lit cigarette in her mouth in every scene. I'll tell you that. Okay?
We're back to this again.
No, but okay, here we go. In the scene I'm talking about, which I have a few things to talk about, the FBI and CIA team of Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, and Benicio del Toro, they go down to Juarez to extract the brother of the cartel major player they're targeting. Is that correct?
Yes. His name is not Jackson.
They go down to get. Oh God, Zack, you're making me do what I hate. You're making me show off my attention to detail. They go to extract Guillermo Diaz to gain information on where Manuel Diaz will be, who is the main cartel player that they are after, to get called back to his boss, whose name I don't remember, but we're calling Philonar Vasco. Or I think I called him 3 different names at this point. But yes, Guillermo Diaz, in my explanation, is Extraction Jackson. At the same time, the scene of our characters going down to Mexico, to Juarez, to extract Extraction Jackson and bring him back to the United States is also Extraction Jackson. It's a verb and a proper noun. Does that clear things up, Zack?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, but I feel like we're repeating ourselves. Is there any more points that we have not discussed already?
Yes, absolutely. In the Extraction Jackson scene, when our characters first realize that they are being followed, we get the wonderful line from Jeffrey Donovan, the burn notice guy. When he sees the car tracking them, he goes, "I'm getting a boner."
Getting a boner.
This is a point worth having, isn't it?
Okay, this is a point worth having. This is a point worth discussing, because this really surprised me. There are so many ways that you can deliver the same emotion without saying "I'm getting a boner," right?
But okay. I've watched enough of these films where you have the special ops military guys, and this is something they would say.
So you're just accepting this as a common colloquialism.
Yes.
So would you say that this is put in this movie solely to further alienate the character of Emily Blunt, because she's the only female in the caravan at that point when our character says, "I'm getting a boner"?
She's pretty much the only female in the entire film.
Yeah,
except for like
absolutely.
One bar scene, she is the only female in the film.
So are you saying that is a further kind of separation?
No, I don't. Yes, I think it's meant for the audience as a way of, once again, isolating her. But at the same time, I think if you did see how a lot of these special ops guys talk, whether there's a woman present or not, I think that's just the sort of language they would use.
That is something I have no experience with. When I'm sitting in meetings with Department of Homeland Security talking about cybersecurity, no one talks about their genitalia.
To be fair, sitting in a conference room discussing things is a lot different than being in Juarez, Mexico, with Extraction Jackson as a car is following you through the streets. I don't know. There's a little bit of a difference there.
You got to remember, I'm in that conference room, Zack.
Oh, I forgot. Are you the Extraction Jackson in that conference room?
That is how every single one of my presentations begins, especially the one I gave in Thailand. I went, "Everybody, call me Extraction Jackson."
So, Rob, what kind of snack do we eat during this?
No. You're jumping ahead. We got more to talk about.
I think we should have eggs with jalapenos.
No, we have more to talk about.
And tortillas.
Speaking of Extraction Jackson,
and coffee.
We have a scene that we need to talk about, Zach. Okay. It's not a
more than one. You know the Juarez scene's a major point of this film. It's not the only one.
It is. It's not the only scene. I want to get your opinion on the interrogation scene because
it's a pretty good scene.
It is. No. I really like the way it was shot. I really like the tension of it. The thing that stood out to me is we get a shot of Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin in the room alone with Extraction Jackson after he's been extracted. So he's extracted Jackson at that point.
Doesn't sound as good.
No, it doesn't. Del Toro gets his dick in his face. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Benicio, literally straddles this guy as he's tied to a chair and gets his... Benicio del Toro is fully clothed. It's a total power move. He's like, I'm putting my junk in your face. What do you think about that scene, Zach? That scene really fucking threw me for a loop. I was like, I've seen some torture scenes before. That was a new one for me.
Well, you can't just look at it just in that particular scene. It's the whole sequence, because how it starts off with your friend from Burn Notice is in the room with Extracted Jackson, is drinking, giving him the bottle of water. Mm-hmm. And Josh Brolin's like, "Oh man, you're filling his belly up with water." Yep. Then we cut back outside, or he goes up and he's like, "Do you know where so and so is?" He's like, "No hablo inglés." And obviously, Josh Brolin has a smirk on his face. And we cut back to Benicio del Toro outside getting a glass of water or a cup of water himself. And a government official comes up to him, obviously someone that Benicio del Toro is friendly with, as friendly as Benicio del Toro's character could be in this film with somebody. And
yeah, it was a exposition side character as far as I'm concerned.
It's exposition side character, but I feel like this is another character that if we got this film, you'd hope this feels like a character that lives in this universe, and Benicio del Toro believably has encountered before. Mm-hmm. And as they're talking, like I said, it's exposition, like Rob said. There's no denying that, though. But during the sequence, Benicio del Toro throws his little paper cup of water away, and we see him pick some.
It was beautiful. I loved the way that was shot. That you don't realize what he has picked up till he's walking away.
He picks it up. In exposition, secondary character, as Rob calls it, looks at him, looks down at whatever he's holding, and then looks back up at him. This is all done very subtly with just eye movements.
Yes.
And we obviously Benicio del Toro thanks the guy for whatever he's doing, and he goes to turn away. And the secondary expository dialogue character looks at him as he walks away with a gallon not gallon. It's more than that. It's like a 10 gallon? 8 gallon.
Common water coolers are 8 gallons.
8 gallons. That's what I figured. 8 gallons. 8-gallon water jug as he walks into the interrogation room where Extracted Jackson is, and like Rob already described, he straddles him, puts his junk right in his face.
He literally asks him for a Hummer.
I'm never escaping that, am I?
What if we add a Hummer? Oh, this week I got this.
Watch the front counter.
Third episode in a row, we're getting that clip in here.
I look forward to seeing how we weave that into Jurassic World 2 Dinosaur Boogaloo.
Watch the front counter.
So anyway, though, and then obviously Extracted Jackson looks at Josh Brolin and says something, and Josh Brolin retorts, "No hablo inglés, remember?" And the next thing we know, we get a shot of Extracted Jackson yelling. Obviously, Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin are torturing him, and while we're hearing this, we see a shot of a storm or a drain in the room as we just slowly zoom in on the drain. Cut to next scene. Yeah, that's a very understated scene in the film, but a very well crafted scene nonetheless.
That's probably my favorite scene in the entire film. I thought
it was I was getting the boner. I thought that was your favorite scene.
No, that's not even my favorite line. My favorite line is the Fiji thing.
Okay.
The I'm getting a boner just stood out to me so much that I had to talk about it. No, but to be honest, like I joked about it already, and I said, that he's Benicio del Toro is basically like, the torture is you're giving me a Hummer, but it doesn't show the torture, but explains it well enough, and I think that is something that takes care. I'm hesitant to say talent. It takes care to craft a scene that way, because when you think about the viewing audience of today, any age range, I would say as a whole, we're somewhat desensitized to violence. And if you just show us a scene where someone is legitimately getting tortured, it's a torture scene. It might be uncomfortable to some people, but at the end of the day, it serves its purpose. This scene in Sicario, the torture scene in Sicario, it leaves a lot, all of it, to the imagination. And I'm surprised by how well that worked for me. I'm surprised by how much I enjoyed them not showing me a gruesome torture scene and just letting my brain fill in the gaps with the implications that they provided. I was actually okay with that. Going from the hot favorite scene of the movie, I want to go to my least favorite scene of the movie. The scene that I hate in every movie, every time it comes up, when we get one character, there's always one, not always, but when it happens in a movie, there's always one character who basically pouts at the screen and goes, "Tell me what's happening or the movie's over." And that was Daniel Kaluuya in this one. Very unfortunately, he's a great actor. I already talked about Bing Madsen in 15 Million Merits from Black Mirror. He's the Get Out guy. Get Out, I loved Get Out. I love Jordan Peele. So, I loved his directorial debut. But literally, the only purpose Daniel Kaluuya serves in this movie is to be the person who goes, "Give me answers or I leave." And that is not a good mechanism of a movie. I'd rather have details given to me naturally than a character giving an ultimatum to both the characters and the audience. That's how I feel. Like, honestly, that's how I feel when Daniel Kaluuya gets his own shot in the movie of going, "Don't leave us in the dark, tell us what's going on." I'm ready to turn it off because I don't need to know what's going on. I'm invested in the movie already.
No, I think you're interpreting this the wrong way. He's not meant to be the character. He's not meant to be a stick in the mud. He's meant to be. Think about it, because Emily Blunt has one of two choices in this film. She has the way, again, entering the world of Josh Brolin, yes, or David. I keep saying David. I keep thinking David O'Leo. I keep thinking O'Leo. Daniel Kaluuya. He's trying again. He's the pathway back to the world of Law and Order. But the problem is that you have two paths that Emily Blunt is given. She's given Daniel Kaluuya's world, which is the world of Law and Order, yet ineffectiveness. Yet you have the world of Josh Brolin, which you can get things accomplished, but it involves with corrupting yourself. And that's what it is. She is giving, and that's why even though Daniel Kaluuya is not really there for most of the first half of the movie, he's there bits and pieces. Yeah. But it's toward the later ends that he is meant to be that divergent path. And because it's even stated earlier on in the film where Josh Brolin asks Victor Garber what's up with her partner, and it's like, oh, he's again ROT scholarship, graduated from I forget what law school, very prestigious law school. He's like,
they don't want him. Yes,
and that's what it is. They don't want a lawyer. They want someone who wants to get things accomplished. And I think the whole point in the film is that you have this again. He is supportive of her, and he does. Like you said, he's saying like, let's just walk away. Let's make them eat this. And I think the whole point of having him in the film later, as it progresses more and more, is it shows that Emily Blunt is choosing the path of Josh Brolin. She is going down that path, and she is, even though she's still with, again, much like how Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro work within the system, and I think it's mentioned earlier on in the film too. I think it's the second scene with Victor Garber where the goalposts are being constantly moved. It's like she keeps saying this isn't correct, this isn't right, and Victor Garber tells her it's like there is no right or wrong. The goalposts are constantly changing, and all you can do is go with the flow each time they move. And I think that's what it is too. Is that, again, Josh Brolin lives in this very fluid world where Daniel Kaluuya is very much rigid, crystallized. It's this very fixed position on the outlook of the world.
Okay, so you're saying the scene where Daniel Kaluuya demands exposition, that's not for exposition's sake. That is for the sake of Emily Blunt's character being further torn between those two facets of the war on the cartels.
I think it's both. I think you need the exposition.
No. Here, I want to push back on that because honestly, what is the answer we get from Josh Brolin? The answer is that they're going after a major drug kingpin. Of course it is. Like, honestly, before we had even gotten that, Daniel Kaluuya was like, what the fuck is going on? What are we doing here? And I'm like, you're going after a major player in the cartels. What else would you think these people are going after?
But he doesn't know that at this point.
He doesn't know that, but you know what? That's fair. I've watched all of Law and Order, and I know that whenever they're going after cartels, they're going after the kingpin. So I wasn't surprised by that aspect. I was more surprised that not just he, that our main characters, even Emily Blunt, why wouldn't the goal be to take down the kingpin? Why wouldn't you assume that?
Because you know how these things work too. It's the thing, they go after bit players sometimes. It's kind of like even Benicio del Toro has a line of dialogue in the film saying that getting the kingpin is like getting a vaccine to a disease. It's incredibly rare, and you have a very brief opportunity to do it. It doesn't happen often. And even what were you calling him? A secondary expository dialogue character even says in 3 days all the players are going to be scattered across the board. And I think that's what it is. It's the whole idea is that you think about again. Oh my God, Kaluuya and Emily Blunt are meant to be thrown into this. They really have they're not used to this. Their job is whoever you describe them as is that they're there to help. They're like a SWAT team that's there to help hostages in highly aggressive scenarios or very volatile, explosive scenarios. They're not used to being soldiers on the front line.
Yeah,
they are very responsive, not reactive.
Okay.
And I think that's what it is. And I do agree with you. I think it is meant to be exposition for the audience, but I think that's there for the first viewing. Because as I was watching this, every time I looked at something, now I'm like, oh, I know everything that's coming in this film now. As I watched it, I found another layer to it, which I think is the hallmark of a great film or any sort of project.
Absolutely.
It's multi-layered, and you can appreciate it on different levels the more and more you view it.
Yeah, I mentioned before that I was tempted to actually watch this again before we recorded this episode. I didn't, but I was tempted to, and I'm definitely going to watch it again after this.
What I would advise with this is that I can't tell you how to live your life, but I would advise putting this on ice. Like not watch it immediately again, but give it some time just to kind of stew, so to speak, and then come back to it. Because I think if you delve right back into it, it might. It's like a lot of things are. I don't want. Well, like I said, I might be giving myself a little too much credit here, but I don't want to say that I'm imprinting on you or impressing on you, like, oh, this is what this scene means. Like I said, maybe a month from now, maybe like I said, let's say for the sake of argument, let's say I go see Sicario 2. We're running out of weird subtitles to give all these weird sequels.
Sicario harder.
I think Sicario 2 Day of the Blank might be another Electric Boogaloo or Die Harder. Like, I think that's almost up there. Like, it's like, you have Die Hard 2, Die Harder. You have Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. I think Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. I think that's almost as good as those. I think that like what movie we're going to see? Oh, we're going to see Fantastic 2, Day of the, I don't know, Nomad. It's like that's a really good like a subtitle for a sequel. Day of the Blank. I think like there's potential there. That there's some like we might not even have to make up a fake one for Sicario 2. It's just there already.
You're so right. I'm thinking like Fantastic Planet 2, Day of the Drugs, Endless 2, Day of the Staircase.
That's what I mean. It's great. It's built. It's baked in already with Sicario. We don't need to. We don't have to outthink it. I think with like Jurassic Park 2, Dinosaur Boogaloo, Sicario 2 is like, don't worry guys, we got this handled.
Nice.
Fun fact, just for our audience: a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado, and Rob and I actually, for like a split, 20 seconds, we were convinced that soldado was a made-up term until we Googled it and found out that it made soldier. We're like, is this even a word?
I thought it had something to do with the sun.
That's what we thought. Like for a solid, it wasn't long, but for a solid 20, 30 seconds, we were like, do they just make up a word?
I thought soldado meant day of the sun, so it would have been Sicario 2, day of the sun.
That's.
Oh, God. This is probably gonna be your favorite reference in this movie after I say it. Okay, Zach, are you ready?
Oh boy.
In one of the final scenes of this movie, Benicio del Toro goes to Emily Blunt's apartment. Emily Blunt is haphazardly trying to smoke a cigarette alone in her apartment. She can't light it for whatever reason. And Benicio del Toro shows up, and he has a document that is basically like, listen, Emily Blunt, you gotta sign this. It says we didn't do anything illegal. We did everything by the book. You gotta sign this document. You know what scene I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a huge scene at the end. And of course, we get at the beginning, Emily Blunt's like, I can't do this. It goes against all of the morals I've presented in this movie. I cannot sign this document. And here we go. What does Benicio del Toro do other than put a gun to her chin? So straight up pistol under her jaw. And he's like, here we go, Zach. He says, come on, sign it.
Come on, sign it.
Literally, the words, quote, come on, sign it.
Come on, sign it.
Now, once again, our audience has not had the pleasure. We have recorded the episode, but it has yet to be released, of Perfect Hair Forever. Zach, do you remember when Uncle Grandfather had to arbitrate the peace treaty between the hot dog buns and the cats? How did he try and get them to sign a peace agreement?
General meow. Colonel burn. Okay, I got somewhere I got to be, so come on, sign it.
Come on, sign it. I got somewhere to be, so sign it. Benicio del Toro uses the same exact negotiation tactics as Uncle Grandfather from Perfect Hair Forever.
Come on, sign it.
That is the last scene I wanted to talk about. Zach, is your mind blown?
I am spritzing the battery acid into my mouth right now.
Come on, sign it. I got somewhere to be.
You know, there's no greater. Okay, in the Star Wars podcast, the phrase "this is great podcasting" is uttered at least once per recording. We make this joke in reference to when we're showing things on camera that the audience cannot see, because podcasting is an auditory medium, not a visual one. Rob might have just elevated this even further, referencing something in an episode we recorded months ago, yet it's not released yet.
We did it in our Claws episode.
I know. At this point, the Perfect Hair Forever episode has been referenced more times.
It's a legend.
Point where it's funny. I don't think that episode is coming out until, again, over a month from now.
Yeah. It's
and
like
Rob
the end of July we have it scheduled for.
It's worth noting, folks, I have not even edited that episode yet. I do not remember that. We had that conversation in the middle of April, yet I still have no... I've never listened to it, yet Rob somehow remembers every single moment of 4 hours of discussion.
Come on. Sign it.
All right, so Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. Maybe that's what soldado means. Come on, sign it in Spanish.
I got somewhere to be. So sign it. Yes, the sequel. This is so exciting. After dinosaur fucking stupidity, I'm so excited to talk about a sequel that I'm actually looking forward to now. So right off the bat, I want to say the sequel is not going to be directed by Denis Villeneuve. No, it's being directed by an Italian person.
Not even an Italian filmmaker, an Italian person.
Yeah, I did not.
They found him wandering the streets of Italy, and they said, "How would you like to direct Sicario 2?" And the guy just shrugged his shoulders, and that's how he was hired.
And he said, "Pasta fazool." And now he's a director. So one, I want to know what Zach thinks about that. But two, of course, we should talk about the plot. Emily Blunt is not involved in this. We are only getting Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin back. So, of course, Day of the Soldado translates to Day of the Soldier. And it is going to focus on Alejandro Gillick, who was Benicio del Toro's character. What do you think? Well, just kind of right off the bat, Zach, what do you think? Are you excited, or do you think it's not? Are you unsure of what to think? What's your opinions? Just because you watched the trailer, you read some stuff. I haven't had that much immersion to it yet.
Well,
I just know that it exists.
Well, as Rob was rambling on about nonsense and I zone out, I did some Wikipedia research on Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. That man has a fantastic title to say. And I saw the I only saw the first trailer back like in December. Like I already said, I had no idea how they're going to make a sequel to this. The trailer looked dumb. There's one thing I got to say, there's a fantastic scene. The word fantastic is in quotation marks, where Benicio del Toro is like firing like it's like a gat almost, or it's a weird scene, and like I said, made no blip on my radar, and have not really thought about it outside of the funny name or the funny subtitle. But while Rob was rambling on about Johan Johansson, I looked up the premise on Wikipedia, and I'm not as angry as I was during the Halloween trailer. Thank God that wasn't recorded.
Can you read this for us? Would you mind?
Sure.
How long is it? If it's not too long, could you read it?
It's like 6 lines. After discovering that Mexican drug cartels are smuggling Sicario terrorists across the U.S. border, the CIA sends Matt Graver and former undercover operative, I'm not saying his name, Benicio del Toro, to eliminate the problem. They kidnap Isabella Reyes, the Transformers 5 girl, the daughter of a drug lord, in a false flag operation designed to incite war between rival cartels. The mission goes awry when it's discovered by the Mexican government, prompting Graver to order Reyes' death. When Benicio... Who?
No, keep going. I thought you were done. Keep going.
When Benicio del Toro refuses, he turns rogue to protect her as Graver assembles a new team to hunt them both. You know what they should have called this movie instead of Day of the Soldado? They should have called it Sicario 2, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, or Sicario 2, let's rip off Logan. This reeks of Logan. Like I look forward to some point in this film where Benicio del Toro has a brain degenerative disease and a clone of Josh Brolin stabs him through the chest. So I look forward to that moment in this film. Just
to clarify, in the summary that you read, Graver is Josh Brolin?
Yes.
So basically what you told us, the sequel is setting the stage for Benicio and Josh Brolin being at odds with each other.
Yes.
No.
This is you saw Logan, a highly edited version in like Singapore.
Yeah, I saw it on an airplane.
Exactly. This is exactly what Logan was, minus the weird Professor X stuff. It's Terminator 2. A dangerous, lethal man has a heart, protects a child from people. It's like, no, this is dumb. It's weird that the same person who wrote Sicario 1 also is writing this, and they wrote Hell or High Water.
Hold on. Yes! Okay, I'm sorry, Zach. I killed it. I killed the moth. I killed the fucking moth. I'm so excited. Composure regained.
Just to let people know, when we first started, on the Skype call 8 hours ago, Rob prefaced before we said anything about anything. There's a moth in my apartment. I have a fly swatter. So if I just all of a sudden go nuts, apparently he's afraid of moths.
No, well,
my cat's aren't afraid of moths.
We haven't gotten into me and moths in this podcast yet, but
we'll save that for the Mothman episode.
There's a history.
The writer is the same one from the first film. He also wrote Hell or High Water. He's also an actor, Taylor Sheridan. Like I said, I don't know. I expect better than a ripoff of the Terminator 2 formula. But considering that, like Rob said, Denis Villeneuve's not involved with this, I'm not surprised that he's apparently producing it, but who knows what that means? That could mean a lot. That could mean very little.
Yeah.
So after reading the description, even though I'd like to see where they go with these characters, I am not holding my breath after that description. I hope that the description is not doing the final film justice.
Okay. Well, I think with everything I've said, I'm gonna rewatch the first one, Sicario. I would love to rewatch it. I'm going to, and I think I'm gonna check out the sequel. Regardless of what I read about it, everything I read about it prior to Zack just reading that synopsis, I just really knew it was about Benicio del Toro's character. I didn't know that they were doing the face-off between him and Josh Brolin. That's pretty cool. Overused, yes, it's nothing new, but certainly, I think I'm gonna check it out. I was so kind of disjointed from this movie when I watched it. The one time I watched it, I was so kind of at odds with what was going on and being confused about why characters were doing things and going on these big missions. I didn't really think of a snack. Now, that should be clarified. I did eat a snack while I watched this movie. For about the last 45 minutes, I busted out some hot, dry salami. like some basically hot sopressata, but really hot, really dry sopressata. And that's what I ate as I actually watched this movie. So to supplement that I have no good snack to think of, I would say you should eat what I actually ate, which was some good, dry, hot calabrese salami.
I think it's less of eating a particular item or food. I think what you do is much like how Emily Blunt is disoriented in this film. Before you eat any snacks during this film, someone puts you like in an office chair, blindfolds you, spins you around like 100 times, and while you're like your equilibrium is trying to like get balance, you inhale jalapeno eggs and coffee.
You inhale them?
You eat it that fast. You eat it so fast, so you're disoriented and you feel nauseous while you're eating it.
I just love the phrase "inhale jalapeno eggs."
There you go.
Because I've made jalapeno eggs, and if you inhale those, your fucking septum's getting deviated like 100%.
There you go. Alrighty, Rob, is this movie a Cinemoddity?
You know what? So I'm tempted to say yes to Cinemoddity, but I don't know if I'm speaking in a vacuum. I feel that part of my reasoning for say that this movie is a Cinemoddity, and maybe even a late night movie, is because it's so different from anything we've done in a while. Like you mentioned before, this is kind of that movie that we both kind of like, we respect, it's different, right? It's different from anything we've ever done on Cinemodities.
It's something that's actually good. It's not farcical or irreverent or silly.
Yeah, this is something that I can honestly say that if I had, there's a good handful of people that I can honestly think of that if they were in my apartment and we were hanging out late at night, I'd be like, hey, let's watch this movie. You might like it. And I think they would. So, Cinemodities, no. Late night movie, maybe. I don't know. That might be a first for me.
I think this is definitely the first serious movie we've ever discussed on here.
Yeah,
grounded. It's grounded. It's serious. I don't think we ever discussed anything like that before on here.
You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. This is probably the most down to earth movie we've ever talked about.
Should we play the Breaking New Ground sound?
Yeah, I think so. Right on. I hope we get to do the sequel eventually. I hope we get to talk about that eventually. Before we sign off, I should say next week we're back to dinosaurs. So if you really enjoyed last week's episode where Rob was just incomprehensibly drunk and angry, and Zack was just incomprehensibly angry, tune in next week. You're gonna get that exact same thing.
God, I really don't want to talk about any more dinosaurs.
I know, but
Colin Trevorrow. Let me rephrase that. Colin Trevorrow dinosaurs.
Yeah, we're getting not Colin Trevorrow dinosaurs.
Well, he wrote it. He wrote the script.
It's
the same people from the first one that wrote it. It's just a different director.
God. And Chris Pratt's in it?
Yes, and Bryce Howard.
Oh, God.
And B.D. Wong.
Oh, ooh, okay, that I'm excited about.
And Jeff Goldblum for one scene.
Oh, I read about that. Yes.
He's in one scene, yeah. It's in every single marketing shot.
You know what? Can I make a prediction that I didn't make in our Jurassic World episode?
Okay.
I think Masrani, the Indian Peter Hammond, or whatever his name was.
Yes.
I think he's going to be alive. I think he's going to be in the second movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my thoughts on that. Yeah.
That's my one prediction I came up with that I didn't think of last week. So put that right next to my prediction of $210 million in opening weekend for Dinosaur Boogaloo.
I am putting my prediction of it's going to be stupid.
Well, that isn't that
that's
the
not
tagline?
Prediction. That's the tagline. Jurassic World
that's on
2
the poster, isn't it?
Stupid. Jurassic World 2, Dinosaur Boogaloo, quote, it's gonna be stupid.
So tune in next week for more dinosaurs. Zach, the one last question I have to ask you, do you have any idea how we're going to end this episode?
For once, I do not have an answer.
So are we going back to the Cinemodities and Inferiority Complex intro backwards?
I think so.
So they can get angry at us again? Good. It's been a while, right?
It certainly has.
Okay, cool. I like it. Next week we'll have some crazy dinosaur nonsense, I'm sure.
Come on. Sign it. Sign it. Sign it. Come on. Seriously. Sign it. Sign it. Sign it.